well, I think it was Alcor, but she worked, you have to check on that, if it might have been, it was one of the predecessors, I think, organizations, but she had worked a lot and been an advocate, and then in her older age she'd gotten Alzheimer's, and she had lost her the money. The family had to use the funds for her care from her life insurance, and so the Society for Venturism was raising the money for her, and that's this individual that got cancer in this past year. The Society for Venturism said that they would raise the money for him too, and Immortality Institute stepped in because he'd been a long time and active member, and did a matching grant of $16,000 in order to raise the $28,000 that was needed for this man to be preserved. So I was happy to help with that. I helped with that this past year, and we also, since I've been on the board, every year we've voted to give an undergraduate research scholarship to a student that wouldn't have funding through normal sources. And we had a member recently give us a $5,000 donation to, and we're writing it into our Constitution to have that just to be an annual grant. So we're getting that in place now, which I'm happy about. And so I guess what I'm getting at is we're a small organization, but we've been able to do a lot of actually helping with the not only with advocacy and getting the word out there. A lot of people come to the Immortality Institute and read about the issues on the forums, but in actually helping with research and research into indefinite lifespans. And they also recently helped with a $27,000 grant for the work through the SINS Foundation, and that's what Aubrey de Grey is heading now. And it was work for someone who wasn't able to get the funding through the normal routes, and helping them to get the laser that they needed to do the actual research on cleaning the kind of the cellular junk out of the cells. So,
okay. So let's back up a bit. When you're talking about cryonic suspension as one way to temporarily, at least, address some of the issues of longer life. You said you signed up for that about the age of 19? So what goes through the thought process, and why did you decide at such a young age to become involved in cryonics?
Well, I was raised, just reading science fiction and loving, all sorts of things, from Star Wars to Star Trek to V or Starman, or, it was just anything Quantum Leap. I loved those shows when I was a kid, and I read a lot of series of science fiction books, and so I knew about, I'd heard about the whole suspended animation, cryonics for space travel, or freezing yourself now and possibly future technology will work, but I didn't really realize that people did it and that it was real until I was a teenager, and I had seen a kind of a sensationalized story. It was at the end of the Dora Kent case at Alcor, where they were protecting. You can read about that. I think it's under the history on Wikipedia about cryonics even. But that piece was on, and it was kind of a negative piece, but I was excited, and I remember looking up on the internet, which you couldn't find as much then as you can now, and Cryonics Institute had some information up, and that's how I learned it was real, and I got the information from them. I didn't really meet any other people that were into cryonics though until I was a little bit older, like when I moved to Oregon.
And how did you evaluate that it was for real, as opposed to just kind of a wishful thinking?
Yeah, well, they're just looking at some of the studies that have been done. I don't know if you haven't read the studies from Suda in Japan. He worked with preserving cat brains and using just regular glycerol. We have much better preservation chemicals today. It's advanced a lot than just like basically sugars to protect the.
So these were cat brains that were brought down to low temperature and then raised again?
Yeah, well, actually in a state of liquid nitrogen frozen for a long time, I mean 5 years and 7 years, and then had normal looking electrical activity, even though he couldn't bring the whole cat back. I guess that was, I mean, just looking at the brain, that was very interesting to me. And then also looking at what happens, I had thought that when things freeze, that they just kind of explodes the cells, and I found out that actually what happens in animals that can survive freezing is they have the sugar in the blood and it keeps the ice around it, but with humans it kind of squishes the cells. And I read about things like the newer developments in vitrification and how you I mean it's just real, it looks like yeah, I mean, just looking into the science, it looks like something, it's not something that I believe will work ever for sure, or I just think it's worth trying, or that it's I think it's something that humans should try to do. And I think it has a possibility of working if technology keeps advancing the way that it is. But one of the good points, I mean, why did I get information when I was young, is I think like everybody, I had friends in my high school that had passed away in a car accident, and I guess I knew that life was very fragile and that an accident could happen at any time, and it seemed like kind of this possibility backup or insurance, and I sort of, to me it was common sense, and I wished it was available for more people and that more people knew about it. And when I was younger, I mean, I'm 34 now, and so I've been into this for like a decade, or doing advocacy, and I've seen a lot of growth in that time. But when I was younger, I mean, I thought that it would be very popular by now, and I mean, you hope that the word gets out and spread. But it's it's really great to see so many new people coming in. I mean, you see a lot of new young people, and you see you see older people that come too, just because they're engineers, or for whatever reason they stumbled across something and they have ended up at sites, and then they start learning about what the SINS Foundation is doing. I mean, and Immortality Institute is one of the major sites where people come and they learn about this, and then they go off and look at the other places.
So Shannon, you have the role now as chair of the Immortality Institute, so what does that involve, and how did you come into that position?
The chair I'm the one that does coordination and talking to the other organizations for like the money that we were raising, and just sending out messages, and then at times doing interviews, and that's, yeah, just when we are really in need of more active directors, and like we have a position of 7 directors, and sometimes we have directors that will come, they show up, they're there at the election, for the elections and debating, and people will vote, and then they disappear. So we have been, we have 3 or 4 really active directors, and we're looking right now at kind of narrowing it down to about 5 so we can get more done. And I mean, we really need to get, I mean,